Simon Moorhead, in the medium term, I'd like to know what you're going to do about energy and food independence. And in the short term, I'd like to know what you're going to do about the pensioners who've got the choice of heating or eating when it becomes very cold and they don't pay taxes. So it's heat or eat in the winter.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That was cheeky because those are two massive questions.
I know it was cheeky,
but that's fine. But they're great ones. They're great ones, Simon. So let me answer them both. Right. Look, your first one on where was I today earlier on? Right. I went to talk to the NFU at their headquarters to talk to all their farmers. Why? Because I passionately want to support British farmers. I represent one of the most rural parts of our country in North Yorkshire. It's a privilege for me to call it home. And it's a privilege for me to represent so many farmers where I am. And that's because food security is incredibly important. And we haven't focused on it enough. I plan to do so. That means lots of things. It means making sure that our agricultural programmes support farmers to produce food and not do 20 other things. It means protecting agricultural land from development of solar farms. It means making sure that we get our trade deals right and not actually sell them out too soon and too quickly in the way that they feel that they have been, and bring them along on the journey with us. So there's lots we can do to support them. But I'd say this, it's as simple as this, and there'll be some people, I'm sure, from rural parts of the northwest, like Cheshire here tonight. I represent more farmers than any other part of this country, according to the NFU. My neighbour is a dairy farmer, and I represent certainly more sheep than people where I am. So if I don't deliver the most pro-farming government, I won't literally be able to go home every week. It's as simple as that.
Thank you very much indeed. We've got a microphone on this side.
This pensioners question is really important.
But very, very quickly, because otherwise people won't get in.
I think lots of people have the same question. Look, this winter, it's going to be incredibly difficult. People's energy bills are going to go up by over £1,000, £1,500. And I think the right thing for a compassionate Conservative government to do is to provide support to the most vulnerable people. And yes, we should cut VAT, and I will do that, and that will help everyone. But there are two groups of people that need specific help, those on low incomes and pensioners. And my view is that they should get direct help. So alongside the winter fuel payment, I will provide extra financial assistance to our pensioners. Now, Liz's plan is to cut taxes. Right? And she said that she rules out direct financial support. So all of you, when you're applauding that and we don't do it, you've got to ask the question, well, how are we going to help these millions of people if we've ruled out directly supporting them? They don't pay tax, the vast majority of them. The third of British families on very low incomes. That tax cut that you're applauding and that she's proposing provides about £1 a week to those people. It is not going to help them. And if the British Conservative government...
Last point, Rishi, otherwise we are really going to run out of time.
...goes through the autumn and winter and does not provide direct support to those vulnerable people, I believe it will be a moral failure and the British people will never forgive us. And if I'm Prime Minister, I will not let that happen.
Next question, woman in the front row here.
Right.
I'm a borough councillor for Culcheth, Glaithbury and Croft in Warrington. We're very concerned about the Greenbelt, and we're seeing local plans being published and Greenbelt taken inappropriately. Land is being taken where currently crops are growing in our village, and next year they're planning to build on it. Will you commit today to quickly bring in some rules to stop this land grab, which is happening right now?
Thank you.
Yes, the quick answer is absolutely yes. I've already committed to doing it. I want to change our planning system so we get rid of top-down targets and we have very strong protection for the Greenbelt, so there should not be inappropriate development on the Greenbelt. We can do it quickly, and we also need to stop particularly urban mayors trying to push development out to the Greenbelt in largely Conservative areas. I will stop that from happening.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Woman in the front row there.
Yes. Hello, good evening.
Hi.
Yes, I just want to know, you mentioned that you're going to tackle inflation. I have the dubious distinction of remembering the 1970s. We had rampant inflation and we had unions out of control. You say you're going to manage inflation. You didn't actually mention about controlling unions because the two things are connected. What is your plan on those two issues, please?
So on the unions, on this actually there isn't, I think, an enormous amount of disagreement between Liz and I. We completely agree. We need to crack on and pass a piece of legislation that means that unions will be, if they strike, they still have to provide a minimum level of service on critical infrastructure like our railways, because they should not be allowed to hold the country to ransom in the way they are. I will pass that legislation. I think Liz has said the same thing, and that's how we'll tackle that problem. But look, your first point on inflation is the right one. And it was right that you mentioned the 70s. And that's the lesson we all need to learn. That's what I talked about when I said we've seen this story before. That's why Nigel Lawson and other Thatcher-era cabinet ministers are supporting my economic approach. Because I think it is an enormously risky thing to do to borrow £50 billion, which is Liz's plan, and pump that into an economy where inflation is already spiralling to 13%, interest rates are already rising. That might feel good for 5 minutes, but it is an enormous gamble with your pensions, your savings, with mortgage rates, that inflation gets out of control. That's what happened in the 70s. I don't want to repeat the mistakes of the past. It's not a gamble that I'm prepared to take, and I don't think a sound Conservative government should pursue that approach, because it puts fuel on the fire.
Thank you both very much indeed. Question from this block here. Can you stand up? Thank you, sir.
Hi, good evening, Rishi. I'm a genuine undecided, so I don't know yet who I'm voting for. You have asked this question on the Sky News debate, and I don't think you properly answered it. And it's about NHS dental care, which I've experienced recently. Loads of dentists across the country in the NHS that have not taken on new patients. I managed to get on one recently, and I live in Manchester. It's in High Wycombe. What would you do to fix it?
Well, I think since then I've actually put out some proposals on dentistry, which you can go and have a look at online. I think we need to look at the dental contract, but the other thing that I've said very specifically that we do need to do is the money that we give to the NHS for dentistry, that is in theory meant to be ring-fenced for dentistry, is not clear that it actually is finding its way to dentistry. And in the same way that social care for too long has been the kind of poor cousin of the NHS, and the NHS will swallow up all the money, we need to make sure, and I fixed that as Chancellor, to get the money to social care specifically. In dentistry, I've said we need to make sure that that's happening, because it's not clear that the funding we put in at the top actually comes to dentistry at the bottom, and that is an easy and simple thing that we should address very quickly to put more resources in.
Better than Sky? OK.
I think I did OK in that Sky debate, from memory. Yeah.
Woman there.
Kay Burley was very upset at the end, as far as I could tell, that I had done so well.
No product endorsements.
Oh, sorry, yes.
Hello.
Woman there.
Hi, Rishi. My name's Joanne, and I'm a parish councillor in Warrington. I would like to ask you about income for lower middle-class families, because in my constituency, they were the ones to give to food banks, and now they're the ones that are in need, and they're going to be struggling this Christmas. They're not going to be able to get benefits. They're not earning high enough money to get to be able to pay for a lot of the shopping and a lot of the bills that are now coming higher due to inflation and tax issues. They're professional, hard-working people who you talked about. They're family-orientated. They're going to find it very difficult to provide for clubs, to buy equipment for their children, for sportswear, etc. How are you going to help lower middle-class families who can't get some of the benefits that you've described?
So, Joanne, I completely agree with you that those are exactly the people that we need to make sure that we're on the side of. That's why one of the last things I did as Chancellor was deliver a tax cut which was directly targeted at those people. And it was raising the amount of money that everyone can earn before they pay a penny of national insurance or income tax. Now, that happened in July. Right? It means you can now earn 12.5 grand. And it means that's a £330 tax cut for all of those people that you're talking about, right? And if there's two of them in the family, that's obviously a good chunk of cash. That's why the support I announced as Chancellor, taking money off energy bills, will help them, £550 this year. And I will go further by cutting VAT off energy bills, which will almost be another couple of £100. So that is all the support in place to help people like that, as well as things that we've done elsewhere. But I tell you this, the best way to help those people is to make sure that this is only going to be tough for one winter. Because it is going to be tough, and there's no point pretending otherwise. Inflation running at 10, 11, 12, 13% makes everyone poorer. Anyone saying that that's not going to happen is not being straight with you. But what I want to make sure is that we get through this winter, and then this is the end of it. That we get inflation back under control and declining. We get our economy growing so I can start cutting income tax, and I've got a clear plan to deliver that, because that is how we're going to help those families. What we're not going to help them by is doing things that might make us feel better for 5 minutes this winter, and then suddenly we've got a big inflation problem. And because if we're all here talking about inflation next year, right, we're all stuffed, right? Those families that you talk about are going to be furious with us, rightly, because we will have let them down, and we will have thrown away the next election by making the mistakes now of letting inflation run out of control, and I don't want that to happen.
Okay.
How are we doing for time, Alan?
No, I promised I wouldn't do this unless I thought it was vital. But on getting inflation down by the end of the year, back to Bank of England target levels of 3% from where it is now, 10%?
No, we've got to get it going down next year.
But when will it be back where the Bank of England...
I can't stand here and tell that precisely.
So
but what I can tell you...
say there won't be inflation next year.
No, there's inflation every year. It's about how much it is. But what I can tell you is that with my plan, because I'm so focused on it, we will get it down faster than we will with any other plan, because it's the thing that I am most worried about and that I will most focus on to do.
Great question. Thank you very much indeed. Gentleman there.
Hello, I'm Leo Shepherd, and I'm from the Chairman's constituency of Pendle. In June of this year, I was withdrawn from my college after I made tweets in support of the government's Rwanda policy. Now, this isn't just an isolated issue. There are constantly people being targeted and witch-hunted in our educational institutions, as the left wing have infiltrated them so that they can take us down before we've even started. So I'd like to ask Mr Sunak, if you are elected to be our leader and our next Prime Minister, what will you do to protect freedom of speech in our schools, colleges and universities? Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Biggest cheer of the night. I mean, very well done. No, so very simply, it's wrong what happened to you, right? And it's happening far too often, and we've got to stop it. So practically, what are we going to do? What am I going to do? I want to change the public sector equality duty to make it crystal clear with statutory guidance about the protections contained in that for political and religious beliefs, so that universities are forced to uphold those protections, and right now they are not. But if we change that, they will have to. But I tell you this, there's one other thing. There's one other thing, because you mentioned schools, because there's another thing we need to look at, and I talked about taking on this lefty woke culture, because right now I'm sure there'll be many parents here, like me, who are desperately worried about what is being said and taught to their children at schools about some very sensitive issues, right? Now, our values on these things are the values of the mainstream majority of hard-working British people. We should not be afraid of standing up for them, and what I want to make crystal clear is to change the guidance on personal, sexual and relationship education in schools, so that parents will always have a right to know what is being taught to their kids, because it is wrong that they are being denied that today, and we must stop it.
Thank you. Next question from the back there. Yes, sir.
Your family formerly was benefiting from non-dom status and other tax avoidance allowances in the UK. And you also, it was found that you had said that you were redirecting funds from deprived urban areas in the north and giving it to areas in the south that don't need that. And from a northern perspective, that doesn't sound too good. So I want to know, can you, what are your specific policies in dealing with levelling up, and how are you going to improve the current scheme of levelling up?
Yeah. First of all, so we're sitting here in Manchester, right? But what I would say to you, for you to say that there are places in the south that don't need investment is simply completely wrong, right? And if you think this Conservative government is going to get re-elected by telling everyone who lives in the south that we don't give a stuff about them and they don't have needs, I don't know what planet you're on, right? When I was speaking, I was speaking in Kent. Do you know who I was speaking to? Do you know who was there? There were people there from Thanet, which is one of the most deprived places in England, right? Now, of course, a place like Thanet needs investment. I'm from Southampton. If you didn't know where Southampton was and you just looked at all the stats, it would look pretty much like any other red wall place in the north. Right? As the MP for Southampton, who is a Conservative, has made the point. So if I say this to all of you, as a room full of Northerners, I am the most Northern Chancellor that we've had in 70 years. But if we define levelling up as something that is only for the North, we will pay a political price for it, because that's wrong. Right? Okay. And there's one more thing, Alex, on that. But
that's your time.
No, hang on. But look, I stand here proudly as the most Northern Chancellor that we have. I'm going to go home tonight in Northallerton in North Yorkshire. I do my politics in Teesside, right? There's a reason Ben Houchen, the Conservative mayor in Teesside, is supporting me. There's a reason all the MPs in that region, bar one, are supporting me, because I've helped turn that place blue. Because what have we done on Teesside? We've put a new Brexit-enabled Freeport there that's bringing jobs and investment. We've invested in Darlington train station. We've levelled up the high streets in Stockton and Yarm and Thornaby. We've moved the Treasury to Darlington. So I'm proud of my record of delivering for the North, and as Prime Minister, I will keep delivering for the North.
This is where I get booed. Last question, short and sharp.
Hi, Rishi. Energy is a need, not a want. Companies have made windfall profits on the current price cap. So why increase in October? Why not freeze current tariffs and give consumers meaningful benefits during the cold winter months? More help is vital. Just to stick to your current plans will lose us the next general election.
Thank you.
Right. So, you know what, actually, your question, ma'am, is better directed at Liz, because I believe that a windfall profit is the right thing to do. I introduced one as Chancellor because I think it's wrong that companies are making billions of pounds of profit as a result of a war, because we're standing up to Russian aggression. So in these exceptional circumstances, I stood there and said we should have a windfall tax. And I'm going to use that money to provide the support this winter to the people that the lady asked about at the beginning, because it's really important. Because I agree with you. So that's my plan. But what you've got to ask Liz is, when she's here, is that she doesn't believe in windfall taxes. Right? She's happy to defend the profits, I think, that these energy companies make. So you should ask her. I think it's wrong. I think we should tax them. I think we should use that money to directly help people. And they need direct support, because a tax cut isn't going to work. If we carry on with that policy of just pretending that tax cuts are going to help all those people and not tax the energy companies, that's how we're going to lose the next election. I tell you that, not with my plan.
Well said, Mr. Sunak.
Yeah.